The 2024 NFL Draft is now in the books, and the Indianapolis Colts selected a few impact players on both sides of the ball. So, what's the outlook for each of the Colts draft picks, and what grades should they receive? Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast presented by Fan Nation on SI.com, part of the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Andrew Moore, and as always, I'm joined here by my partner in crime and fellow analyst at Horseshoe Huddle, Drake Wally. Drake, what a weekend. I mean, we took in the first round live here on Horseshoe Huddle, and honestly, I got some people that set me my face when I found out that Latu was the pick there in the first round. And honestly, just complete shock from me to see that Latu was the pick for the Colts. Really wasn't expecting that just based on, the past with the Colts and Chris Ballard. But the Colts feel like they got the best pass rusher in the draft in Latu. Getting Adonai Mitchell in the second round was tremendous value. And honestly, I'm really high on this Colts draft class.
Yeah, and look, we talked about it a little bit, I think, with Noah when he was on with us live doing round one. Especially after they took Latu. I think the Colts, this is kind of a low-key thing. I think the Colts believe in Dallas Flowers, and I think that they believe in Jalen Jones. I really do. And also, I think that you're looking at a pass rush that didn't have enough QB pressure. Now insert a guy who was top 5 in the metric in Division I college football, out of every defender, by the way. So it's like, he's impressive. Look at the guy's tape. Fantastic. He has the potential to be everything the Colts have wanted and needed at edge rusher, and that's a top flight guy that can just absolutely stack up pressures and stack up quarterback sacks.
Yeah, I agree. And even past the first and second round, the Colts added some depth pieces along the offensive line that could potentially turn into starters. And then on day 3, you got another wide receiver who's an electric guy, adds to that return game, and then you just added pieces throughout the roster. So, so tonight we're really gonna dive into each one of these players, guys. We haven't talked to you guys since that first round on Thursday night. Boy, we've been busy over at Horseshoe Huddle. If you haven't seen, go to the site, check out all of our articles that we've put out from draft weekend, and there's still going to be plenty more to come. But if you haven't done so, please go follow us on all of our socials, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts on FN on X, and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Hit that bell so you know when Drake and I go live every Monday and Thursday night, or for special breaking news episodes so you never miss us. And if you can't catch us live or on YouTube, no worries. Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're on there as well. So make sure you subscribe, give us a 5-star review so we can reach other Colts fans just like you. Let's take a look at the chat before we get started here. To Lindsey Mack with the $5 super chat. Thank you so much, brother. Our loyal fan from over the across the pond. Lindsey says, gentlemen, thank you for your efforts these last few weeks. Some good picks, lots of versatility. Bring on the preseason. Go Colts. Thank you so much, Lindsey, for all of your support. It means the world to us. We've been grinding over here at Horseshoe Huddle for you guys and for comments like that, so much appreciated. And we really do you're one of the good ones, Lindsey. We hold you in high regard. Alex should have gotten a cornerback in round 3, but other than that, I'm okay with what Ballard did. Latu better work out though, or it's definitely going to hurt this team. And that's part of the risk in taking someone like Latu or Adonai Mitchell. Really with any draft pick though, you never know how they're going to work out, but if those guys do hit, potential Pro Bowlers out there. So Truitt saying I'd give him a B+. In the words of the Riddler, if you fire him, he won't learn nothing. # Batman forever. What a poll. Truitt, thank you for joining us this evening. Stats Matt, what's up? I think we should all be pretty happy with the draft class. Got plenty of stats tonight. I think Stats Matt has a stat of the day for every single pick tonight, Drake. So we're gonna make sure to talk about that. We got DSG Goodbar in the house, NFL Nerd, Christopher as well, Sean Contwright, Sir Enzo Fernandez, and a whole lot more. And I wanted to shout out to Sarah and Wyatt Law as well. Yim with the $5 super chat. Great draft. I think this could rival 18's class. Hope we got the next TJ. Who was your favorite pick and why? Also, Ballard haters have been silent. So, first of all, thank you so much for the super chat. Drake is already getting a buzz here with all the super chats to start out this evening. But we'll talk.
You guys,
about
I have analysis to do.
Exactly.
No,
exactly.
come on.
We'll talk about our favorite picks tonight and dive into each one of them. We're going to say what we like, didn't like, did we expect this pick, and then we're going to give a grade. As silly as grades are, we're going to give a grade for each one of these picks and for the class overall. So Yim, thank you so much for the super chat. We hope to answer your question throughout the show. So Drake, let's start with the first round pick there at number 15, Latu, the pass rusher out of UCLA. Honestly, and I think we talked about this on the live show, but Latu, when you turn on the tape, I mean, easily the best pass rusher in this class. His film is the best out of any of them. And what's that adage that I always say? The tape doesn't lie. So, I mean, when you're looking at a guy that consistently gets off the ball very, very quickly, you're looking at a guy that had double-digit sacks the past 2 years at UCLA, 23 and a half sacks. He gets consistent pressure on the quarterback, like you mentioned, top 5 in pressures in all of FBS. But the biggest thing to me, and the reason why I didn't think he was going to be on the Colts radar really, is the medicals, because he was forced to medically retire when he was at Washington, missed a year of football, and it was a neck surgery. Usually the Colts kind of typically stay away from those types of talent, those types of prospects. But the Colts said they felt good about his medicals, and if the Colts dive right into those medicals as thorough as they normally do, and they feel okay with it, then I think fans should feel okay with it as well. But Drake, when you look at Latu just strictly on film, I mean, this is probably I wouldn't even say probably, this is the most accomplished pass rusher and the most polished pass rusher that the Colts have drafted in the Chris Ballard era.
Yeah, and I absolutely was shocked when it happened. I remember you were like, I don't know what you guys are going to think about this pick, and it was actually going down, and I was like, oh God, what could it possibly be? But then when it kind of settles in a little bit, and then you kind of remember all of the film you've broken down on the guy, when all the draft talk that we've done and analysis, we've had time to talk about Latu. And then you go back and you look at the guy's tape again, and then you realize the Colts are getting, if it all works out, potentially the top defensive player in the entire 2024 draft. And I promise you guys, he has the potential. And like Andrew said, it was just the medicals that were potentially holding the Colts back, because he's so dominant in the pass rush that people forget. Well, I guess the better way to put it is they look at his run defense and they're like, okay, he needs to improve with that. It's because he's so dominant with the pass rush that his run defense doesn't look good by comparison. He's actually pretty solid in that area. I think that he has potential to overshoot Kwity Paye as a run defender if he can get all the athletic traits to line up with Charlie Partridge's coaching and the rest of the team around him. I just think that this is a really awesome fit, and it really makes that Colts defensive front truly scary. Could have been the piece they were really missing, man.
The stat of the day for Latu, 23 and a half sacks, 34 tackles for loss at UCLA, 64 pressures in 2022, and 62 pressures, which was a 21.5 pressure percentage. So 1 out of every 5 snaps, he was getting pressure on the quarterback in 2023. Both years are top 10 for all defensive ends in the last 3 seasons. He was first in pass rush win rate in 2023 with a 23.1% and 7th in 2022. So plain and simple, this guy gets after the quarterback, Drake. And you talked about it, potentially the best defensive player in this draft class. For the Colts, he was. For the Colts, he was the top defensive player on their board. Chris Ballard even admitted that afterwards. He's like, he was one of those, we thought there was 4 or 5 elite players in this class, and Latu was one of them. So to be able to get that player at 15, the Colts were ecstatic, and you guys haven't seen it that yet. That was posted. The Colts posted on social media. It was a video inside the draft room, inside the war room that night, and everyone's celebrating. Chris Ballard's just sitting there laughing, and he says, "We got the best effing pass rusher in the draft." And that's got to be exciting because. And I know Colts fans are guilty of this. I know outside pundits are guilty of this, but they always talk about how many times has Chris Ballard drafted a pass rusher and gone for traits over production, what he could be versus what he is already. And there's been a lot of misses. You think about back to 2017 with Terrell Basham, Kamoko Ture, uh, uh, Ben Banigou. You think of all these pass rushers that really haven't panned out. And I think Kwity Paye and Dairo Dangbo have certainly panned out. Tyquan Lewis has certainly panned out. Maybe not for a second round pick, but he's been a solid rotational guy. But you haven't had that dominant pass rusher, and that's really something the Colts have missed. DeForest Buckner is DeForest Buckner, but he's not that dominant pass rusher because he's a defensive tackle. He's a dominant 3 technique, but you need that dominant edge rusher. You're talking about all these teams are searching for their TJ Watt, their Myles Garrett, their Nick Bosa, their Micah Parsons. Latu has that potential. I'm not going to say he's going to be that, guys, because that is such a high level. That's like Hall of Fame, all pro type level. I don't want to put the pressure on that guy or put the expectations on that. But when you see the film, and if you're looking for a game to really dive into for Latu to see how he can dominate a game, turn on the game film of UCLA versus USC versus the number 1 pick in this draft, and Caleb Williams. Latu dominated that entire offensive line. No matter where he was lined up, he gave Caleb Williams nightmares that day. So in that evening. So you gotta look at the full body of work. And again, the biggest question mark with Latu, it wasn't character, it wasn't off the field, it wasn't anything on the field, it was the medicals. And Chris Ballard talked about it. He asked so many questions about the medicals, drilled into it, and they came away feeling just fine. So if the Colts are okay enough to take Latu at number 15 and feel good enough about the medicals, Colts fans should too. I mean, because they have all the access to it, unlike what we have, And then when you hear about Latu's story, it seems like Washington didn't really get a good examination on him before they medically retired him. The physician that did clear him, Drake, was the same physician that cleared Peyton Manning after Peyton Manning had the same exact surgery on his neck. So all of that just makes you feel better about Latu and his future. Not only is that the medical is going to hold up, his neck's going to hold up, but what he can become for this team. And Yim said it earlier. Said, I hope we got the next TJ Watt. That was one of my player comps for Latu coming out, was TJ Watt and Trey Hendrickson, and if he can turn into that, guys, you can't ask for a better first round draft pick, really, if he can reach Pro Bowl level as a pass rusher.
Yeah, and it would be phenomenal for Indy to land a guy like that because they've missed that elite pass rusher for so many years at this point. So, and plus you look at, there was a lot of worry with Peyton Manning. Well, then he turned around and literally set the entire NFL on fire for a couple of years. So, I mean, look, man, that was also at the end of Manning's career. This is right at the start of Latu's. So I think that if the Colts feel fine, and we've said this a lot, Andrew, but we're going to drill this into everyone's head. If the Colts feel okay with his health, everyone else should be fine. Everyone should relax because if everything pans out, man, total package as far as pass rusher, and man, Charlie Partridge and that whole connection with the rest of that talent on the defensive front, all that combined sounds pretty awesome if it all hits that zenith of potential.
I mean, when you look at Latu, he's just a pass rush technician. He's got great instincts. He's got great ability to bend around the edge, and I think a lot of what his run defend, his ability as a run defender, probably not at the level of Kwity Paye, but I think he can get better at that. So, and you're not paying huge money for a guy to defend the run. You're paying that huge money for this guy to pin his ears back, go get the quarterback, and get you 12, 13, 14 sacks a season, get consistent pressure on the quarterback. And I honestly think Latu can do that someday. Semper Colts fan, thank you so much for all the support, buddy, and thank you for the $2 super chat. Means a lot. He says, I was a little curious and a little I think that means
Confused.
curious or confused. I was a little
Yeah.
confused by this draft, but now I'm excited. Well, hey, if we were able to help you out with that, fantastic. But if it was just you kind of thinking it through, hey, I think you're right there with Drake and I. So appreciate all of your support, Semper Colts fan. We really, really do. So final grade on the Latu pick, Drake, I give it an A minus, because while it's not the necessarily the top two positions of need, cornerback and wide receiver. By the way, the Colts did really try to trade up into the top 10 to nab one of those top three wide receivers, and Brock Bowers, one of those four. Just nobody wanted to tango. It takes two to tango. Nobody wanted to deal. As we saw, there weren't very many trades for teams dropping far back in this draft. So to me, A minus, because if Latu does pan out, you have a TJ Watt, Trey Hendrickson type of pass rusher that is going to get you consistently, 12, 13 sacks a season at bare minimum, and put consistent pressure on the quarterback. Latu has the chance to be the best pass rusher the Colts have had since Robert Mathis. I truly believe that.
Yeah, and they really, outside of Grover and DeForest, I know that those guys are kind of pushing 30 or over 30, but the rest of those guys are relatively young. So if you can take all the talent that they set the Indy era sack record with last year, and then if Latu can pan out and all that mixed together can work out, oh man, you're unlocking the rest of the Indianapolis Colts defensive front with Latu. So that'd be pretty awesome. And I think you could say also that the Charlie Partridge hire at the end of the day was a home run if that all works out.
Absolutely. So what grade are you giving the Latu pick, Drake?
Oh, I'm going A minus. I think that, like you said, man, everyone's seeking to get that game-changing edge rusher, that absolutely dynamic edge rusher. The Colts they're shooting for it, man. I know that they picked Kwity Paye in the first round a couple of years ago, but 21st pick, 6 picks behind, totally different type of defensive end, and they knew that he wasn't going to be the 10-plus sack every single year guy, so I think that Latu is that guy. Plus, I do think his potential is far greater. So.
Yeah, and as far as Kwity Paye's fifth-year option, which I know we'll probably get some questions about that, I would say it's unlikely Kwity Paye's fifth-year option gets picked up. That does not mean, however, that the Colts don't like Kwity Paye and wouldn't bring him back on a second contract, just not currently at that $13 million mark for next season. Now, watch Kwity Paye will go out there, have 17 sacks and command, $20 million plus a year. But hey, if this lights a fire under Kwity Paye and he ends up going and doing that, I mean, look, I think the Colts would be more than happy to pay for that contract. But let's go to the second round, Drake. This one, didn't think this guy would be there at number 52, especially after the Colts traded back from 46 to 52, and they still get one of the wide receivers with the most potential in this entire draft class, and that's Adonai Mitchell, the wide receiver out of Texas. A guy that we spent a whole episode dedicated to Mitchell, talking about his fit with the Colts and if he was a sneaky NFL draft target for Indianapolis. We probably wouldn't take him in at 15 or maybe towards the back end of the first round, but at 52, Drake, this feels like an absolute steal, especially for what Mitchell could turn into, which is a Pro Bowl level wide receiver. He has all the tools there. It's just about putting it all together. And, with under Reggie Wayne, Shane Steichen, having Michael Pittman take him under his wing, you got to say the chances are pretty good that this guy is going to hit his ceiling or relatively close to his ceiling.
Yeah, and he's joining a receiver group that I really think can not only maximize his talents and maximize his development, but good Lord, man, they could really use a guy like him. And I know that we always go back to Kentley Platt's RAS score. I mean, it's a 9.99. Okay, you're talking about an absolute freak. 4.34 speed. I mean, the guy's vertical, his broad jump, his 10-yard split, 20-yard split. This is a sexy looking pick, man. I mean, looking at the athleticism, I know that the numbers, Xavier Worthy, I think, had more consistency, right?
Mhm.
And he would have still been an awesome pick for the Colts. Let's be honest. Okay. I mean, just the explosive factor, Shane Steichen wanting to do more of that, Anthony Richardson, potentially the next T.Y. Hilton, if it all works out, sounds great. But you're getting a bigger guy who can still fly down the damn field, man, and he can play in the slot. Probably still going to see him play outside more, but he's going to push Alec Pierce for that wide receiver 3 role. And you're probably going to see Pierce be more of a downfield threat, more of a vertical threat, and more of a blocking guy on rundowns. So I love this pick, man. The more I've been thinking about it and looking it up and looking at his tape and looking up the metrics, it's pretty freaking exciting. And man, him and Anthony Richardson kind of feels like Josh Downs falling in the draft last year, man. If that all works out, holy cow, that's a hell of a weapon you got there.
DSG Goodbar saying getting Mitchell at 52 is a felony. I love that. I love that. And honestly, you look at the Reggie Wayne was pretty fired up to get Mitchell, said we just got better today. And I think the Colts wide receiver room definitely did. The stat of the day from Stats Matt for AD Mitchell, a 0.97% drop rate. So that's one drop in 103 targets. You talk about Velcro hands. That's Adonai Mitchell for you. The guy just doesn't drop a ball at all. At the combine was measured at 23.84 miles per hour. The 10-yard split was 0.03 from Xavier Worthy. And Xavier Worthy ran a 4.21. 126.2 passer rating when targeted, and then a 98 PFF grade versus single coverage, which is insane. Absolutely insane. And then the last thing here, only 15 of his 170 targets were within 4 yards of the line of scrimmage. Big play wide receiver. That is Adonai Mitchell. And the thing is, Mitchell isn't just a guy that you send on streaks or deep posts either, which it seems the Colts did a lot of with Alec Pierce. He can win over the middle of the field. He can win in the intermediate game too. And we talked about this, and I got some people that raised their eyes when I said this, but when you turn on the film and you watch Mitchell and his route running, he still does need to polish some things up. I will admit that. He is not a perfect route runner by any means, but his ability to create separation at the top of his routes reminds me so much of CD Lamb and how fluid he is as an athlete and his ability to do that. So, the Colts can get an X wide receiver like Mitchell and turn him into CD Lamb or CD Lamb light even. You pair him with your Z in Michael Pittman and you got Josh Downs at the slot. Good luck. This is the type of target that Colts fans should be excited about. I mean, outside of, Marvin Harrison Jr., we're talking about Malik Neighbors, Roma Donzi, those were those top 3 guys. After that, it can be kind of a crapshoot. Brian Thomas Jr., Xavier Worthy, Lad McConkey, Adonai Mitchell, all those guys are kind of in the same realm, and really with Mitchell, the only thing holding him back was him putting it all together, and a lot of people talked about those reports that came out about his character and about how he doesn't work hard. And you saw how fired up Chris Ballard got about that, dropping multiple expletives in that rant. He was pretty pissed off that those comments were surrounding Adonai Mitchell, and that was something that Mitchell said. When Mitchell was asked his first question by the Colts media of how he was feeling, he said, all I could say is I'm kind of pissed. He was pissed that he fell in the draft, and now he's got that chip on his shoulder. He wants to go out there and show the world that they messed up to not picking him. And so that's something that I think the Colts can lean into. I think it's something that Shane Steichen really likes to see in his players, that dog mentality. That's what Adonai Mitchell has, Drake.
Well, and that's perfect. That's perfect for what the Colts are trying to accomplish. And I think that they're going with more potential over, what the finished product is, kind of like you mentioned earlier. And look, man, if this guy fits, he's played a lot of wide. He's also played a little bit of the slot. So he can play inside too. But if this guy fits Shane Steichen's offense, given the rest of the weapons and the offensive line and just how the rest of this draft, as we'll get to, has gone for the Colts, if all of this really works out, this could go down as one of the best drafts, if not the best draft that Chris Ballard has put together. And hey, man, nothing like giving Anthony Richardson a guy like AD Mitchell. I love this pick. I would probably say that it was one of the more shocking ones in regard to that he fell, because I thought he was a late first rounder. But hey, Colts got a steal here. Reminds me a lot of Josh Downs. And again, if AD Mitchell can work out like Josh Downs did, then I'd say that that's, again, another one hell of a steal for the Colts, man.
And honestly, Drake, this pick really reminds me, not, I wouldn't say the player. He doesn't remind me of the player. I mean, maybe a little bit of a player comp, but honestly, this reminds me of you of George Pickens falling in that 2020. I think it's 2022 draft. Yeah, 2022 draft. And the funny thing is, George Pickens was picked at number 52, where Mitchell was picked as well. But Mitchell's, I mean, from everything from you hear from the coaching staff and everything, he's a good kid. I know there were some questions. Why did he transfer from Georgia to Texas and go down in competition? He didn't go down in competition because he wanted to. He moved to Texas to be closer to his daughter. And if you haven't read the letter that he wrote to his daughter in the Players Tribune, I encourage everybody to go look that up and go read that. It'll get pretty musty in there really, really quick wherever you're reading that. So to me, this pick is another A- for Adonai Mitchell. The value that you're getting him there. He still has some things to work on. Obviously, he's not a complete player, and I don't know even if he'll start right away at that X wide receiver position, where Alec Pierce is. I think Alec Pierce probably will start, and then they'll gradually get Mitchell in. We'll have to see kind of how training camp goes. But if Mitchell hits, Drake, you're talking about a Pro Bowl wide receiver. We already have a Pro Bowl level wide receiver in Michael Pittman on one side. You get another in AD Mitchell or the Adonai Mitchell on the other. I mean, you're doing what you need to do. You're surrounding Anthony Richardson with weapons and top tier talent. You can't be mad about this pick in the slightest right now. So I give it A- for the Adonai Mitchell pick.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you because, like you said, if he fits, he's pretty much a surefire receiver. He's got Reggie Wayne as his coach. The rest of this receiving core is going to benefit from having him, but he's also going to benefit from having a guy like Michael Pittman Jr. and Josh Downs. But look, man, Alec Pierce, he's not going to give up that position without a fight. And who knows how Alec Pierce is going to look with a full year of Anthony Richardson. So it's all still kind of up in the air, man. But I got to give this one an A- too, and it keeps going up. Might be closer to an A+ by the time the season starts. But yeah, man, I think he's a steal. And I think, again, he was a potential late first round pick that you got in round 2. So that's considered a draft steal, just like Josh Downs.
The GOAT, Logan Schmidt, showing up tonight. Really, really appreciate it, buddy. Appreciate all of your support. And he's, I mean, hey, you don't know, you never know, but this could be potentially realistic. A defensive rookie of the year and offensive rookie of the year are on the Colts. Let's go, boys. Hey, we'll see. I think Latu definitely has a chance at it. And if Mitchell has a fantastic year, well over 1,000 yards and a lot of touchdowns, you never know. But I think with those first 2 picks, Colts fans could be really excited about Latu and Mitchell. Logan, thank you so much, buddy, for all of your support. It means the world to us, as you know. Drake, let's go to the 3rd round, the second pick on night 2 of the draft. Another one I really wasn't expecting here. I thought honestly, I was live on Bleacher Report and I'm talking, Colts need a safety here or a cornerback. You look at Cam Hart here, you look at Jaden Hicks, but instead the Colts trade up, which they rarely do, and they take Matt Gonzalez, the offensive lineman out of Pitt. I put offensive lineman here, Drake, because he can play tackle, he can play guard, he can play all over the offensive line. He has incredible versatility. And that was one of the main sticking points with the Colts. We want to get a guy that can play all over the offensive line. And honestly, and we'll get into it, but this could be the early front runner for that starting right guard spot in 2025, Matt Gonzalez.
Yeah, and we saw the value of improvement and depth. You saw the value of the improvement with Will Fries last season, and you saw the value of having some depth, on the offensive line. I know Freeland really struggled. He was also a rookie, and he was drafted to be exactly what he was, and that is a swing tackle. So, like you said, though, man, you're getting a guy here that's played all over the offensive line. He struggled with some injuries, but here's the thing, man. like you had to explain to me, and I kind of looked into it a little bit further. You're talking about before all that with his toe. I mean, you're talking about one of the top linemen in the entire NCAA. So the Colts trading up already made my sirens go off inside my head. I'm like, anytime that happens, that's freaking wild. You think Nick Cross, Jonathan Taylor, holy crap. You think they're trading up to go get somebody that's very rare. So then when it became apparent that it was an offensive lineman, I was like, that's really weird to me. But then when you go and you look at the tape, always go look at the tape. You're getting a dog. You're getting a guy who's a great pass blocker, could probably improve a little bit more in the run blocking, but the groundwork is there, and so as long as, again, they feel the medicals are okay, they're going with the tape and the proven facts that this guy's a dog. So if you look at the salary numbers too, it's way more apparent that Will Fries, unless he plays out of his freaking mind out of nowhere, he's not going to be retained, man. You're paying too much to Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, Braden Smith. You will be paying Bernard Ryman when he's due. So you're probably going to want your right guard to have a rookie contract when it's all said and done.
Especially if Ryan Kelly does earn a contract extension,
That's
and
right.
I think if Kelly plays like he did again, like he did in 2023, if he does that in 2024 and he doesn't want to retire, I mean, you'd be foolish not to bring back Ryan Kelly, not only because he's a damn good player, he's a Pro Bowl center, but also just the leader he is. He's one of the top leaders in this entire locker room and has been for a long time. So that's not exactly sending a good message to your locker room either. Want to get to the stat of the day for Gonzalez here. Stats Matt saying 2023, he had an injury. Obviously, that's what we talked about. He only played 3 games in 2023 because of that toe injury, but in 165 snaps, 0 sacks, and 3 pressures. He also allowed 7.2% pressure, was or a 7.2% pressure allowed rate. And in 2022, 17 pressures, 0 sacks, 56 of 200 in pass block efficiency, and 55th in run block efficiency. And I saw this over the weekend too. Over his career, and when you look at it, Gonzalez, he played tackle in college. I think he can play tackle in the NFL. A lot more of teams think he fits better at guard. 6'6", 327 pounds, 33-inch arms, got a really long wingspan, but it seems like he fits better at guard, just a big guard, which the Colts really like to have, So 13 starts at right tackle, 11 at left tackle in 937 pass blocking snaps in his career, 3 sacks. That's all he gave up was 3 sacks in 937 pass blocking snaps. Insane number. The guy is fantastic at pass protection. So if you're looking for a guy to potentially replace Will Fries, and I think there is still a chance Will Fries is back in 2025, but it would have to be for pretty cheap, and you can't pay everybody. You really can't. And you got to be thinking Quentin Nelson already makes $20 million a year. Braden Smith, $17 million. And Braden Smith, regardless of what some people think, when he's healthy, and it looks like he's going to be healthy to start OTAs or to start training camp, one of the best right tackles in the game. You have to think about that upcoming extension for Bernard Ryman, because if Bernard Ryman keeps this up, he's a franchise left tackle. And you know what franchise left tackles make more than Quentin Nelson is making. So that's another $20 million a year that you're going to be dishing out. Ryan Kelly isn't going to be necessarily cheap if he continues to play at a Pro Bowl level. You just can't pay everybody, So you get a guy like Matt Gonzalez on your team who is able to step in at right guard and you keep the train rolling. You have to think about that. So he said he feels 100% with his foot, which is great to see. In my opinion, as Luke Veerkamp, one of our good buddies, says, you're both A+ in my grades. Appreciate the hell out of you, Luke.
What a guy.
I'm going to give this a solid B to teetering on B-, Drake, because I do think there were more pressing needs here. But at the same time, if Gonzalez is able to step in and he solidifies that right guard spot, you lose Will Fries and you don't miss a beat, I mean, it all pans out in the end. So as of right now, B, almost a B- for me. But I think Gonzalez is a hell of an athlete. And if you didn't see it and you saw, or you need to go watch the call that the Colts posted between Ballard and Gonzalez when he was drafted. I mean, it'll fire you up. I'm a big fan of Gonzalez already, but B to B- for the grade.
Yeah, and look, man, the Colts have shown in the past that just because you have a little bit of injury injury history doesn't mean that they're not going to take a chance on you, a la Dio Dangbo. You're like, now he's in the starting rotation almost at this point. So I give this a B-. I think that, it's another, the Colts had multiple picks like this where right when they happen, you're kind of like, what are they doing? And then you think about it, you sit and you stew on it a little bit, and then all of a sudden it all makes sense. So I think that the more protection you provide for Anthony Richardson, always a fantastic way to go. I think that when you make that protection versatile, I think that's even better. You've already got a guy like Danny Pinter who center guard, obviously is a better center, but you're talking about making sure that your line is solidified. All right. And you saw the importance of having good backups. And who knows, like you said, at the end of the day, he might be the starter. So I'll give it a B-, man. I like your grade of a B-, and I like my grade of a B- because you can never, kind of like pass rushers, you really can't have enough protection either.
Yeah, and depth along the offensive line is imperative. A
Always.
lot of teams struggle there. The Colts shoring up that area, so in case their injuries do happen, they've got a guy that can be that next man up. And speaking of next man up, the Colts did it. The Colts took one of our draft crushes. I know it was Patrick's draft crush the entire time, and that's Tanner Bortolini, the interior offensive lineman out of Wisconsin. Could play center, can play guard, one of the most athletic offensive linemen in the draft. And in fact, StatsMat already has the stat up here. Only interior offensive lineman since 2003 to earn a max score in Next Gen Stats athleticism model. 4.1% pressure allowed rate, 1 sack and 11 pressures in 2023, 28th of 200 in the country in pass block efficiency, 70th in the run. So he definitely has to work on his run blocking, but he's also only been starting center for one season and was a guard before that. So he's definitely has, a center guard flexibility. Listening to him speak afterwards, after he was drafted, he's just ready to get in there. He's ready to learn from Quentin Nelson and Ryan Kelly and be that next great Wisconsin offensive lineman. So if the Colts do let Ryan Kelly go, I could see Bortolini stepping right in and starting at center for years to come. And shoot, he's gonna factor into that competition at right guard with Gonzalez if Will Fries leaves. So Drake, in my opinion, the Bortolini pick was an absolute home run. Patrick with the super chat, really appreciate it, buddy. Say it ain't so, but Tanner Bortolini might have passed Grant Stewart as my player of the game every week already. Regardless, if Bortolini plays, Patrick's going to put him as the player of the game. Appreciate the hell out of you, buddy, as always. But Drake, what do you think about the Bortolini pick? And honestly, I kind of feel bad at this point that I left him off my mock draft, but it just seems like a perfect fit.
Yeah, and it's kind of similar to the Gonzalez pick, because when you look at like the bench, you look at like the strengths the strength attributes, that sort of thing. You're kind of like, ooh, those are a little bit on the lower end. They're going after the really nimble guys, man. They're going after the guys that are incredibly quick with their feet. They're incredibly athletic. They can move fast. They can adjust to a lot of things, because in today's day and age, you're not dealing again with the slower defensive tackles. You're dealing with these freak athletes, and defensive tackle is a very sexy position. Those dudes are the top end guys, are getting absolutely paid. Go look up DeForest Buckner and Christian Wilkins' contracts, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So it's incredibly important to have guards and centers that can make things happen. And yet again, the Colts go with a versatile guy. Dude, as you know, love this pick. I mean, you're talking about a guy that he has so much athletic potential that you can't teach. And a guy like Charlie Partridge, who, by the way, was one of the elite defensive front coaches in college football, is getting – or not Charlie Partridge, Tony Sperano Jr. Mm-hmm. Tony Sperano Jr., who has recently been an elite hire for the Colts, because he was able to get that entire offensive line group out of the gutter and back to playing to true form. So along with the Gonzalez pick, I'm really pumped for this one. Dude, for my grade, I got to give it an A-. And I think that it has potential to really do something special, because like you said, there's two fronts that the Colts you have to address it. Even if Kelly's going to stay, guys, he is on the latter half of his career at this point. He's been around Indianapolis for a lot longer than you'd think. Like it seems like the time's flown because it has, but he's been a Colt since I think 2017, I
Mm-hmm.
believe, which is a long time ago now. So you got to potentially get his replacement. Here you go. Well, guess what? Then if Will Fries doesn't work out and you look more at Gonsalves like a guy who's just more of your rotational, kind of do it all offensive lineman that's more of a depth piece, well, then you've got a guard. Okay. So it's just, I think it's a perfect pick. Like you said, I think it's definitely worthy of an A minus. And again, you can't have enough protection, man.
A minus definitely fits. That's my grade as well. Really, really a huge fan of the Bortolini pick, and I do think he has potential to be a long term starter on the Colts offensive line in the future. So it's going to be fun to watch kind of how his career pans out and how he can ascend under Tony Sperano Jr. The Colts went to the fifth round again, or I'm sorry, went to the fifth round, had 3 picks in the fifth round, and went back to the wide receiver well, this time with Anthony Gould, the wide receiver out of Oregon State. Drake, the first thing that stands out about Gould is his return experience. And we talked about it. The Colts were placing a premium because of the new kickoff rules. They were placing a premium on trying to find someone that could be a really good punt returner and a really good kick returner for them. Enter Gould. He comes in, he's a little bit undersized, only 5'8", 174 pounds. Doesn't have the longest arms either, but he's got a 4.39 40, a 39-inch vertical, 10'9" broad jump. Explosiveness is the name of the game with Anthony Gould, and he immediately comes in. Drake, he's going to be that starter, probably would assume at punt returner and kick returner to give some juice there. But this is a guy that could fit the Isaiah McKenzie role in this Colts offense. A guy that could be a gadget guy on offense. You can move him around and put him in different spots. He doesn't have to have a major role on there, but when his number is called, he can ask to do those quick gadget like things like Isaiah McKenzie did, and probably have better potential at it than McKenzie did as well.
Yeah, and it really shows the importance that the Colts are putting on this position, picking a guy like this in the 5th round. Okay, so it also shows how bad they wanted McKenzie to work out last year. If they're basically trying to take another swing at this, I love this pick. I think that 11 games, 44 catches, 718 receiving yards, 16.3 per catch. So the guy can make things happen. Only 2 receiving scores, but it's the return game that you want to look at. 26 punt returns, 423 return yards, 16.3 yards per return, and 2 more return touchdowns. Guys, that 16.3 yards per return is fantastic, and he is dangerous as hell. So I think that this is awesome, and it also shows that the Colts are putting an emphasis on the return game, because I think, folks, you're going to see more return touchdowns this year than you've ever seen in the NFL.
Taking stats, Matt, stat of the day there, kind of basically reading his mind. 44 catches for 718 yards, 2 touchdowns, but it's the 18.3 yards per return in 2022 and with 2 touchdowns, and then 16.1 yards per return in 2023. An electric special teams player, and the Colts, and I think the Colts and Shane Steichen really think that they can take advantage of these new kickoff return rules, getting Brian Mason in there to kind of divvy up and scheme some different things up. You get an explosive guy like Anthony Gould in there, we could be talking about a couple times where he takes it to the house, or at least gets the Colts in better field position for Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor, and the rest of the crew to go to work. So for me, I give this a solid B. Great. I think it's a good pick. As far as Gould's impact on offense, probably is going to be probably minimal. He's not going to have too big of a role, but again, you're getting him for special teams. I think he really rounds out this Colts wide receiver room. He can be in that Isaiah McKenzie role for the most part. He's going to be that backup slot receiver to Josh Downs. So a solid B. You brought him in here for his explosiveness as a kick returner and a punt returner, and then whatever you can get out of him on offense, I think is a plus.
Yeah, I give it a B minus, and I think that if you can get whatever you were trying to get out of Isaiah McKenzie out of this guy, I mean, that's awesome, because I think, especially, again, we're going to be talking about this a lot with the new return rules. You got to emphasize explosiveness on special teams. I think you're probably going to have your returner right here.
Exactly. Let's go to the next pick in the fifth round. This guy is listed as a safety at Missouri. That's where he played. He's going to play linebacker for the Indianapolis Colts, and that's Jalen Carlisle, the linebacker out of Missouri. And honestly, when you look at him as a safety prospect, Drake, I mean, this guy was huge, and so he fits better at the linebacker position. 6'3", 230 pounds, 34-inch arms with an 81-inch wingspan, and the guy runs a 4.5 40. So he's a rocket ship. And when you put him in there, this is your coverage linebacker pick, guys. This is the guy that's going to come in as a dime linebacker in those sub packages, to provide that coverage boost in the linebacking core. A guy that can run all over the field, has really long arms. He fits the archetype of a Colts linebacker. Big, long arms, fast. And here's the thing too, the ball production: 9 interceptions, 17 passes defended at Missouri, led the team in interceptions for 2 years, led the team in tackles for 2 years. So I mean, this guy was a playmaker on the defensive side of the ball, and I think the Colts are really excited that they were able to get a coverage linebacker, or a guy that's they're going to convert from safety to linebacker, kind of like they did with Cato June back in the 2000s, who is now the assistant linebackers coach as well. I think this could be a sneaky good pick for the Colts, and a guy that has a bigger impact than a lot of people think he will.
Yeah, and we're in the day and age, for the NFL where you see, the moldability with positions. And you see this, you saw this happen last year with the Colts, where they took Ronnie Harrison Jr. and they turned him into a linebacker. And I think, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think he came away with 2 interceptions from the linebacker position, because you're talking about a guy that his whole career was playing safety and is now better at covering than probably his starting linebacker peers. So this is the same exact situation. EJ Speed, Zaire Franklin, undisputed starters. They are not probably better at coverage and pass coverage, even right now, than I bet you that Jalen Carlisle is. And I think the Colts look at the size and they're like, look, guys, in the linebacking coaching room, you guys can get this guy up to speed and you guys can make him look really good, because Ronnie Harrison's still there, man. Talk about 2 coverage linebackers. That's awesome. I like this pick. I give it a B. I think that changing positions is awesome too, because guess what? If the floor freaking falls through at safety, you can also take one of your linebackers and Jalen Carlisle and plug him in.
Exactly. 9 interceptions in the last 3 seasons. 2023 was a down year with a 115.9 passer rating against in 634 snaps. But in 2022, in 710 snaps, the passer rating against was 79.9. So, and I think it is going to be a little bit of a transition for Carlisle, obviously coming to the NFL game and switching from safety to linebacker. But where he's going to make his impact immediately? Special teams. That's where they already said he's going to be an elite special teams player. They think Carlisle would, sitting behind EJ Speed, likely at that will position. Carlisle is going to grind and cut his teeth on special teams. And then when his number is called on defense, that's obviously in those passing situations. So for Carlisle, for me, I'm going to give it probably a B minus, just because there is some unknown there, but I think the potential is there. He's an athletic freak. You bring him in as that coverage linebacker and as a special teamer. That's what you're kind of shooting for in these later rounds. So solid B minus for Carlisle, but he can have a bigger impact than I think people realize. The final 5th round pick, Jalen Simpson, another safety that's going to play cornerback for the Indianapolis Colts, coming out of Auburn. And Drake, this guy seems like he is going to provide the depth at that nickel cornerback position. You're talking about a guy that played a lot of different hats at Auburn. He did play safety and cornerback at Auburn. Was then he was transitioned mostly to safety, but with the Colts envision him as a backup nickel. 5'11", 179 pounds, has 32-inch arms, runs a 4.45 40. So this guy, he's a really good athlete, and for years the Colts have been kind of looking for some depth at that nickel spot behind Kenny Moore. You get that with Jalen Simpson. So I think the Colts are going to start him out at cornerback, but he's got that safety background, so it kind of falls into the same boat as Carlisle, where if you need to, you can put him at safety in a pinch. But I think the Colts really want to focus on Simpson as that backup nickel, and then obviously he'll get time on special teams as well.
Yeah, so like when you look at his height, you look at his weight, little shorter, little more slender than what the Colts typically go after. Which this was a draft that really showcased that Ballard has officially shown he is willing to change his draft methods. I mean, multiple guys in this draft do not fit the athletic profile that you've typically seen. But when you look at Jalen Simpson outside of the shuttle, man, everything else checks out. And the dude is a freaking flash. Very fast player. In the short, intermediate, and long, he's going to keep up with these guys. I love the fact that they took him from safety and they're putting him at cornerback because guess what? He was an elite cover safety, and he covered a lot in 2023, covered a lot in college as a safety, and he was in the slot a lot as a safety. So you're looking at a guy that I don't think the Colts are worried about his size. I think that they look at his skills, they look at his tape, and they're like, look, man, he can compensate for that, which, we've seen guys that are absolutely tiny dominating coverage every now and again. I mean, Brent Grimes recently from the NFL, it's like 5'9", he would just muscle people around. So it's not always the athletic traits, and I'm glad to see Ballard going at least a little bit away from that tendency that he's always done in the past because I love this pick. I'm actually going to give it a B+.
Okay. Love to see it. Stats Matt saying the fourth lowest yard per target of all safety prospects in the draft, had the worst missed tackle percentage, 17 career missed tackles, has 3 interceptions at cornerback in his first 4 seasons. His last season, he moved to safety and had 4 interceptions. And then 195 of Matt stats that Matt said that this is supposed to be 650. So 195 to 650 snaps in 2023 were at slot corner, 150 at box safety, and 299 at deep safety. So versatility. You can place him all around the secondary. He has experience there. And again, that ball production really sticks out. 7 interceptions, 21 passes defended in his career there at Auburn. And he was second team all SEC last year. So again, I'm going to give this probably a B-, around that B- area. Solid depth piece, can play on special teams. You're hoping he doesn't have to play too much defensive because Kenny Moore is out there. But again, a nice developmental piece. You get some solid depth in the secondary, and that's still needed. I know a lot of Colts fans are looking at the wanting the Colts to sign a cornerback to start, but you still need that depth. And really, outside of Kenny Moore, they don't have a lot of very good options. Excuse me, at that nickel cornerback position. So it could be, again, another sneaky good pick for the Colts. Now, this next pick kind of puzzled me. I think I was the most confused with this pick out of any in the entire draft, and that's Micah Abraham, the cornerback out of Marshall that the Colts got with the 201st pick in the 6th round. Completely goes against what the Colts have done in the past, especially under Chris Ballard. This guy did not have good testing numbers at the combine. I think his RAS was in the 3s. So one of the lowest scoring RAS that the Colts have drafted under Ballard, and when you look at it, he's not very big either. Only 5'9", 185 pounds, only 30-inch arms as well. Does run a 4.43, but I think the main reason the Colts did take Micah Abraham, ball production. You look at his career at Marshall, 12 interceptions, 55 passes defended, and was a first-team all-conference, all Sun Belt Conference the past 2 seasons, and led the Sun Belt Conference in interceptions the past 2 seasons as well. So they're betting on that this guy's ball production will translate to the next level as well, and if he obviously a depth piece, can play on special teams, but if he has to come in and play cornerback, they're betting on this guy going out there and making some plays and forcing some turnovers.
Yeah, and I'm not a fan of the pick at all. I think that addressing a true cornerback at this stage in the draft, to pick a guy like Micah Abraham, not knocking the guy, like you said, actually pretty awesome turnover numbers. When you look at his numbers, I mean, they're actually pretty damn good. But just kind of a weak selection. Now watch him go out there, become the undisputed cornerback 1. and Juju Brents and Dallas Flowers and everybody else takes a back seat, and we all look like freaking morons, like I did with Will Fries. I'm gonna have to eat that for so long, but I give it a C minus. I think that it's kind of at the point in the draft where you're taking a couple dart throws, but it's really just the athleticism because, as you explained to me, even with Shaquille Leonard's low RAS, when you look at the injury history, as I did not know in a previous stream, that's why his RAS was so low. This guy's good. Micah Abraham is fine. He's good to go. So this one's curious. It's interesting. I wonder how they're going to utilize him. Probably not in coverage right away on defense.
I think it definitely caps his ceiling, and I think Abraham does have an uphill battle to make the roster. Might be a guy that starts out on the practice squad, but he does have good lineage. As I see people in the chat saying, yes, his father, Donnie Abraham, did play in the NFL and was a third-round pick in 1996 and had 38 interceptions in his NFL career. So you can kind of see where that ball production, where a little bit of that comes from. There's a little bit of it's in his genes as a playmaker. And you know what? I mean, you're going to take a chance on a playmaker. I mean, especially in these later rounds, I'm fine with it. It's just, you have to have realistic expectations. The stats, Matt says 12 interceptions and 46 starts. 22 stats were 6 interceptions, which was third in all of FBS, 10 other PBUs, 23, 4 interceptions, 75.4 passer rating, 15 pass breakups as well. Drake, I think C minus is adequate. C minus is the perfect grade here because, again, it's the 6th round. You're just taking shots at this point. So you bet on a guy with some upside in ball production, but does he have a realistic shot to make the roster? We'll have to see. At this point, I'd probably lean no, but hey, maybe he impresses in training camp and he ends up beating out someone like Jalen Simpson as that backup nickel. We'll kind of have to see there. And then our final selection that we're going to talk about, the 7th round pick out of Oklahoma, Jonah Laulu, the defensive tackle who was a defensive end for much of his time at Oklahoma, moved into a 3 technique. And Drake, I think this pick was strictly at athleticism. Laulu is a guy that I think, if I remember correctly, he's about 6'5". I think he's about 292 pounds, in very, very long arms. 30, if I can look here, try to find his
33 and a half
33 and a half inch arms. So
really he almost has 10-inch long hands.
Yes, 10-inch hands, 36-inch vertical.
Wow.
So I mean, they're betting on a guy with athletic traits. And Ballard even said Laulu needs a lot of work. So do I expect this guy to have an impact year one? Probably not. Jake Witt also needed a lot of work. So my guess is what happens is if anything, Laulu pushes probably Taven Bryan for a spot on the roster. But at the end of the day, it seems like practice squad his rookie year is more likely. And then you kind of see what you can do, see how you can develop Laulu. It doesn't seem like a 2024 pick, potentially a guy that can contribute in 2025 and beyond.
Yeah, and you know what? I've changed my grade since my piece. I'll give this one a C minus. I'll give it a C minus just because I think that when you look at his athletic traits, I mean, my God, actually, he looks like a freaking monster. But there's been multiple athletic freaks that have been massive, just drought runners in the NFL. So I think you could have addressed something else in the 7th round. But again, it's the 7th round. Can you really screw it up? Probably not. I mean, if he hits, fantastic. If not, then not really that big of a deal. But I do like the idea of pushing Taven Bryan because that's one of the re-signings I didn't understand. I would love to see somebody in Taven Bryan's role actually be able to stop the run. So that'd be great if he could do it.
Yeah, I would agree there. 102 tackles, 27 and a half tackles for loss, 10 and a half sacks in 66 games with 24 starts. He also had 31 tackles, 8 and a half tackles for loss, 2 and a half sacks, and 1 interception at Oklahoma. 95 total pressures,
Love
39 at Oklahoma. Exactly. He's a pass rushing defensive tackle. That's what he is. And if he could continue to kind of refine himself, more pressure is good for this Colts defensive line. Drake, yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm C minus, but borderline D plus on this pick. So a guy that's not going to have really an impact. You'll see what he can do, but again, 7th round picks mostly are just you're throwing it at a dartboard. You're throwing a dart at a dartboard, honestly. And it was kind of funny because when you if you saw the Colts post when the call to Laulu, he first thought it was a prank call when Chris Ballard called him. So that was kind of funny. But yeah, so we'll have to see what the production or what Laulu ends up turning out to be. But I think practice squad is the most realistic option for Laulu with the Colts this season. So Drake, we've gone through all 9 draft picks for the Indianapolis Colts in this draft. What is your overall grade for this class, starting from Latu at pick number 15 all the way to Laulu at 234? How do you think the Colts did, and what's your final grade? What's your final way too early grade, I should say, on the 2024 Colts draft class?
I'm a lame ass, so I'm gonna do like a little rangy one where it's like, between this and this. In my piece, I put B plus, but we're all anyone who covers NFL or any sports really a prisoner of the moment. So I think between B plus and A minus, I think, look, man, at first when it all happened in real time, you're like, what is happening in really the first half of this draft? And looking back, especially those first 2 picks, choice type of stuff, man. You've got yourself arguably the best defensive player of the entire draft. You have a guy that is a potential game changer at wide receiver. He's a bigger receiver that you've needed on the outside that can push the guy that you drafted to be that guy in Alec Pierce. Then the next 2, you're protecting Anthony Richardson. Then after that, I love the creativity to take 2 safeties and put them at linebacker and cornerback. I think those position coaches told the war room, look, we're confident we can make them work at our respective positions. In the last 2, you're going with a couple of dart throws. One guy is really good at ball, ball placement and getting to the ball, causing turnovers and getting the ball away from the receivers. And then the other one's an athletic freak. So I give it between a B plus and an A minus. And if it all works out, man, it could be Ballard's best draft that he's ever had, because he's had an uphill climb ever since that Luck retirement. I hope people realize just how much you have to climb back uphill. It's like falling off the top of Everest when that happens.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. I think this is a very high B plus, teetering on A minus for me for this draft class. And honestly, it's so close, I might as well just push it over the edge. It's an A minus. I think this draft class is an A minus for Chris Ballard and the Indianapolis Colts. You go out there and you get premium talent at 2 premium positions, and you didn't have to reach. You kind of just let the board fall to you. And then this is kind of what we talked about. The Colts weren't going to reach for guys. They were going to, if they felt that there was a guy that they really wanted, and they definitely tried to move up in the first round, but overall they let the board fall to them. You get who you think is the best pass rusher in the draft at 15, the best defensive player in the whole draft. You're able to secure him. You get a guy that was a fringe first round talent at wide receiver at 52. Could be the steal of the draft. You reinforce the offensive line with 2 guys that could be starters for you as early as next season in round 3 and 4, and then you take some shots on day 3 in round 5 through 7. You get an electric returner. You get your coverage linebacker. You add some depth at cornerback, and then you just take a shot on an athletic defensive tackle. This is an A minus for me, because if Latu and Mitchell hit their ceilings, they're Pro Bowlers. And if you can get 2 Pro Bowlers out of the same draft, the Colts did that in 18 with Quentin Nelson and Shaquille Leonard, and then got a very high quality starter in Braden Smith. So if the Colts can get 2 Pro Bowlers in Latu and Mitchell in this draft, and get 2 high quality starters in Gonzalez and Bortolini, I mean, shoot, this would be an absolute home run draft class for the Indianapolis Colts. Obviously, they got to play. You could talk about this all day. They got to prove it on the field. That's but right. I think the Colts didn't have to reach. They let the board fall to them, and they got some guys that I think, especially with Latu and Mitchell, are going to have a pretty big impact in year one almost immediately. So it's going to be fun to watch these rookies, as it is every single year, watch them kind of really go at it and see the kind of impact they can make on this Colts team in 2024. So as we go, I was gonna hold off, since we're already at an hour. I was gonna hold off to the next episode, but we've got a super chat in here from the man himself, from Semper Colts fan. So we're going to talk about it anyways. Thank you so much for all of your support, buddy. Really, really do.
Well, now we have
it.
to talk.
We have to talk about it. As Drake has to take another drink. Semper Colts fan says, any undrafted free agents you guys are excited about? So Semper Colts fan, that's what exactly we're going to talk about right now. Appreciate the hell out of you and all of your support. Was going to make a graphic for you guys. Didn't have time. I apologize to the YouTube audience. So I will just read off the undrafted free agent tracker currently for the Colts. Some interesting names for sure on here. So here are the names that the Colts have signed or have been rumored to sign as undrafted free agents. BYU and USC quarterback Keaton Slovis, Kansas quarterback Jason Bean, Texas Tech wide receiver Xavier White, NC State tight end Trent Penix, Marshall offensive line Dalton Tucker, Oklahoma defensive tackle Isaiah Cole, South Carolina State defensive tackle Jablonski Green, Kansas linebacker Craig Young, and Notre Dame kicker Spencer Schrader. So of those names, Drake, I don't know if you've even been able to look into those guys, but just give me one name. Give me a name of a guy that stands out to you, or a guy that you think has potential to make this final Colts 53-man roster, which in my opinion, it's probably the Colts 53-man roster is going to be one of the hardest to make in quite a long time for this franchise. There's just so much talent throughout.
I think it's going to be in a position where you need undeniable something. And I think that with offensive line, you need undeniable depth. And then when you see the way that the Colts did the draft this season, why not go versatile? Why not go with Dalton Tucker from Marshall? You're talking about a guy who's a right tackle. And I'm just talking 2023, right guard and right tackle. He can play multiple positions. He also is a hell of a pass blocker. Regardless of the NFL and running offenses, it has been for a while and is now and will be for years to come a pass-first league. You're going to need to start emphasizing pass blocking over run blocking if you have to decide on these offensive line products. And I think that last year they took Jake Witt because they didn't want him to fall to undrafted free agency. So I think this is, the Jake Witt that maybe fell to undrafted free agency. And I think that that's a guy that they should pick up because of the versatility. Who knows? He might hit. There's been very few that have hit in the NFL over the years, but worst case scenario or best case scenario, maybe he becomes a depth piece. Worst case scenario, oh freaking well, you cut him. It happens. There's so many names that we cover in pieces, Andrew, that we forget about just because, my God, does the NFL churn some of these guys out so fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's 100% correct. And I like the pick. I think Dalton Tucker, he's a big guy. He's, 6 foot, 6'4", 307 pounds, 34-inch arms with an 84-inch wingspan. He's definitely raw. I think he falls into that Jake Witt kind of area. So it'd be interesting to see if he does get some run with the second unit, because if he does, then you're thinking, he could be a guy that the Colts end up keeping on that offensive line. But to me, I honestly don't know if any of these guys will make the final roster. I don't know enough about them to really say. But when you look like Xavier White, that wide receiver room, I think is pretty set up with the 6 guys.
Especially after taking 2 in the draft.
Exactly. Pittman, Pierce, Downs, Mitchell, Doolin, Gould. That's a solid 6 right there. Tight end, big group. Dalton Tucker, potentially. Defensive tackles, you already have a lot. Maybe Craig Young, because I know that the Colts, they've got Zaire Franklin, EJ Speed. You've got Jalen Carlisle now. Grant Stewart, obviously, Saguna Luby. Do they keep a 6? Does it end up being Craig Young? Well, we'll have to see. But to me, it's the most interesting part out of this is going to be watching potentially maybe a QB3 battle. I still think that Sam Ehlinger probably has the upper hand because, guys, the Colts still love Sam Ehlinger. You guys have to really think about
it's
that.
hard not to love Sam Ehlinger.
They love Sam Ehlinger, and as that emergency third quarterback, it's hard to beat having a Sam Ehlinger in there as that emergency third quarterback. But obviously, they're bringing in competition. Keaton Slovis was back when he first started at USC. People thought he was going to be a potential first round pick. Before things kind of he ended up transferring, and then fell off a little bit after his freshman year. And then Jason Bean. Jason Bean is an absolute weapon. I mean, if you're not familiar with his game, he is a true dual threat quarterback. And I want to highlight stats, Matt, what he said here. Jason Bean will be our preseason MVP. 1,342 total rushing yards with a 5.3 yards per rush. So I tell you what, Drake, watching Jason Bean in those in those preseason games really get after it, I think that's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun to see how that quarterback run game is incorporated into those preseason games, and to see that competition between Sam Ehlinger, Keaton Slovis, Jason Bean, and how all of those guys react to the competition. We've seen Sam Ehlinger light preseason games on fire before, and each one of those guys brings a different skill set. Keaton Slovis is more of the pocket passer. I think he had 80 touchdowns in his college career. And then Jason Bean, obviously, that true dual threat who maybe lines up a little bit more with the skill set of Anthony Richardson. So I don't know if any of these guys are going to make the roster. I'm kind of leaning no, but I will say this: that QB3 battle is may not be important, but it's going to be a hell of a fun time to watch throughout training camp and throughout the preseason.
Yeah, and I know the Colts weren't on their QB3 last year, but you saw the importance of a backup. Okay, so you want a backup's backup, you want them all to be as good as you can possibly get them. I love the fact that there's potential for a battle at QB3 because, hey, who freaking knows? The NFL goes in many ways every single season. Many stories play out. You might one day need a QB3, so you want them to be as solid as you can get them.
And you know what's funny? As our good friend Noah points out, Jason Bean and Sam Ehlinger are the same age. There's only a 9 months difference, and Sam Ehlinger is entering year 4 in the NFL.
Brandon Whedon.
Exactly. pretty crazy to think about. So, but yeah, Drake, I mean, after this weekend, I think if you're a Colts fan, I think you should feel really, really good about this draft class. You get some impact players right away, some guys that could potentially be starters down the line. And my last thing I'll say is the Colts didn't address, they drafted 2 safeties, but they're converting them to different positions. Keep an eye on that safety market, guys, because now at 4 p.m. today was when with the compensatory pick formula, any signings after that point doesn't count towards that. This is where the Colts typically make some moves. And again, they restructured DeForest Buckner, or they structured Buckner's extension in a particular way for a reason. Justin Simmons is still out there. Quandre Diggs is still out there. Do not be surprised if there is a veteran signing at the free safety position, and it could be a pretty big name.
Yeah, and look, hey, they still need it. Especially after taking those safeties and converting them to other positions. You still need to push Nick Cross or supplant him. So I love the fact that they've been this patient, and they were even that way in the draft. So we'll have to see, man. The drama and the fun is not over, Colts fans. That lull period is approaching, but it's not there quite yet.
It's not. We still have plenty to talk about. Well, I'll be on here until my wife goes into labor. 37 weeks. We could have a baby at any day now, and then it's Drake's show until we get back. So, but that's our show for today, guys. Really, really appreciate everybody tuning in to talk about this 2024 Colts draft class. Want to give a shout out to all of our super chats this evening: Lindsey Mack, Yim, Semper Colts fan, Logan Schmidt, the GOAT, Patrick Rye, the CFO himself. all of you guys, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody else that joins us on a nightly basis to talk about Colts football. We hope you all enjoyed tonight's episode. Hope you enjoyed the live stream on Thursday night. That was so much fun, just hanging out, talking ball with Drake, Noah, Stats Matt, and all of you guys. It was an absolute blast. And that's why we do those draft live streams, to just chill, talk football with you, and see who the newest Colts are going to be. If you haven't done so, please go follow us on all of our socials, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts on FN on X, or subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Hit that bell so you know when Drake and I go live every Monday and Thursday night, so you never miss an episode. And if you can't catch us live or on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're on there as well. So make sure you subscribe, give us a 5-star review so we can reach other Colts fans just like you. Guys, if we rattled off every single article that Drake Wally wrote for horseshoehuddle.com this weekend, we'd be here for another hour. So Drake, tell the people what they can really go check out on the site, because you've got a lot out there.
Did a whole crap ton of grades. So go check those out. Did a final grade. I did each grade outside of the second round with AD Mitchell and then the 6th round selection. So go check those out. But also I have one coming out where I do question what's going to happen with some of the other young edge rushers now that they have selected Leatu Latu. So go check all those out.
That one's going to be an interesting one. So make sure you check that out. For myself, got to speak with all of the Colts rookies, all of the incoming draft class throughout the weekend. So we already have pieces out there on Leatu Latu, wanting to prove that he's the best defender in this class. Adonai Mitchell being pissed and the vengeance he wants to put on the rest of the league with the Indianapolis Colts. Matt Gonzalez got a piece out there in his versatility. Tanner Bortolini wanting to be the next great Wisconsin offensive lineman. And there's more to come from Anthony Gould, Jalen Carlisle, Jalen Simpson, Micah Abraham, Jonah Laulu. All those guys will get to tell you what they had to say after they were picked. So make sure you check all of those out and all the other fantastic articles and writings by our colleagues at horseshoehuddle.com, including our own Noah Jaber. Go follow Drake at DWalsterDrake. You can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL, and we'll be back Thursday night to talk more Colts football with you, talk more about this draft class. It's going to be a lot of fun. So until then, Colts fans, enjoy your week and get hyped for the new class of Colts rookies to come in and see the impact that they're going to make this season. It's going to be a lot of fun.